Summertime is a great opportunity for trying many traditional, warm, hearty recipes. And as we gather the implements which are required for the omelette, we will think about the best ways to paint horses and Celtic chariots in 1/72 scale, and how to convert Celtic warriors in the same way.
Now, you may be wondering, what do omelettes have to do with Celtic cavalry? In 59 AD, at the Battle of New York, the Brigante egg friends fought a running skirmish against the 2nd Legion Augusta, using the oval bulk to squash their enemies. Casualties on both sides were great, yolk and blood intermingling and sizzling in the hot sun, and everyone agreed it was the best omelette they had ever tasted. I know this happened because I saw it in my dreams, after eating the glowing mushrooms under my house, and a voice appeared to me, regaling me with this account, urging me to make this video and also telling me to invest in Bitcoin and burn down my house. Aside from historical validity, did you know there are thematic links as well? How so? Well, much like the chariot, an omelette is a symbol of defeat, broken open to be devoured by the forces of modernity. Yet even as it is subject to the vast, industrialized killing process of centralized administration, it is beautiful in form and lifts the heart. The chariot, much like the omelette, is antiquated, a throwback to a time of heroic, personal combat. And though, admittingly, the link between the two is tenuous, by using this comparison I'll also get to teach you how to make a light, eggy snack, and that's kind of nice. But enough of that. I hear hoofbeats on the distance.
Clop, 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 clop.
It starts as a rumble, felt deep in the gut, reverberating through your bones and at the back of your mouth. Then it grows louder, a deep, thundering pounding of hoofbeats, overlapping into a wall of sound. Then you see them, a stampede of horsemen and chariots, racing forward in mass, roaring their battle cries, beating their shields, holding swords and spears high like a living, breathing avalanche breaking upon you as your life is measured in heartbeats. The Celtic charge was a terrifying, inspiring sight on the battlefield, and recreating this in 1/72 scale is equally terrifying and inspiring, but more through how small the f***ing eyes are, and how getting the played lines right will literally take days. But that's what I'm here. It's dark wasteland for Celtic 1/72 videos. But if we all work together, a new dawn can rise, and Celtic chariots can grace the battlefields once more. As this is an army guide, rather than a step-by-step painting tutorial, let us first cover the history of the Celtic chariot. Then we'll talk about how to build and paint these and cook your omelettes. We'll discuss the themes of Celtic chariots and cavalry. And finally, to round off, let's talk about how to convert your Celtic warriors so they really embody the themes of what it means to be Celtic. Horses were highly valued in Celtic society, mythology, and warfare. Horse breeds have always changed throughout history as different societies favoured and bred out or bred in certain traits. Celtic Iron Age horses were small and fast. They were used for transportation, to display one's wealth, and for religious purposes. Celts also had ponies, but it is believed they preferred horses because ponies were unstable and uncomfortable, like my house. Celts believed in anime. Animism? Animalism. That's it. That means that nature has a spiritual power, so they were the original hippies. That's why they got purged by the police state! I'm seeing a lot of parallels here, some spooky parallels. For the Celts, the horse symbolized power, beauty, going fast, being fertile, and having dollars. Being good and bad, all great things. They had a goddess for the horse too, Epona and Rhiannon, which were the patron deities of horses. Epona protected the horse and rider, and she had a cult and everything. But what is important to us wargamers? Well, war! So Celts were recognized as great horsemen, they used chariots and light cavalry in battle. Both units were of noble status because horses were expensive, so they were more likely to have the best gear too. Chariots were used as mobile shooting platforms and transport among the battlefield. Chariot members would dismount to fight as infantry, while the drivers would hang back for the 3 R's: rescue, reconnaissance, and redeployment. Or RR. Now, is this disappointing in the extreme? Yes. But look at them. They're just a board. 2 more boards and 2 wheels. They look like something you'd go to cart your grandmother around, you know? I don't know what you're expecting, but modern movies probably had bigger budgets than Boudica did for her rebellion. But don't just take my word on it that ancient chariots weren't good for direct contact. Let's ask someone that we can all agree with. Sir Tony Robinson. Sir Tony Robinson, politically safe English actor, is a good consultant on the homemade DIY cars, which I've recreated from his classic program, Tony Robinson's Britain's Ancient Tracks. I am Sir Tony Robinson, a literal knight, famed throughout the realm for my skills at exploring things, and having a very diverse portfolio in exploring many different genres and fields, which is pretty impressive actually. I find myself stranded in ancient Britain, and I am in need of a ride. Ah, Mr. Celt. This appears to be a dainty platform upon one which may travel pleasantly. As you may have noticed, there are many Celts in Britain. Oh, hang on. There is a young Celt here. Do you want to ride in my cart? Oh, yes, please. Jesus, I should have done the whole ridgeway like this. I don't know why I was walking all this way. Jeez. And from that day forward, Tony Robinson was never seen again. But as we can see, ancient chariots weren't particularly armoured, so they weren't very suited to direct ramming or close contact. In contrast, Celtic Cavalry had a reputation for being very skilled riders, and as such were employed as mercs by the Romans, Greeks and Carthaginians. Riders acted as scouts, guarded marching columns, challenged and taunted the enemy, ambushed foraging Romans, cut off supplies, and in pitched battles, harried and flanked their enemies. So now, we know about the before 4 times. So how do we make man dollies out of these? God, I'm too old for this. I need to take up day drinking or employment or something else growing up. So you definitely have to consider basing. I personally base using 1.5mm thickness plastic card, and then I cut the dimensions according to the requirements of Basic Impetus, which is my current gaming system. But I'm sure that everyone's got their own.
8 times 6 is 48 has a lot of factors.
What if it's 8? I've been wondering if there's a way to adapt multi-model bases for a skirmish game like Infamy, which got released recently, and I'm very, very keen to try out, but you know, there's a global pandemic, so it's hard. When I was younger, I never really thought about the base. It was just a means for the miniature to get from point A to point B, and it was just something to put the miniature on. But as I've gotten older, I've started to think, why don't we do something with it? Why don't we try to make it a part of the actual model? To that end, I'm going to show you how I made a hill to put my chariots and my cavalry upon. And I think it turned out quite well, because it kind of tells a story of for example, the cavalry charging downhill, or poves atop, being sentries, or the chariots rearing up as a display piece. I do see a lot of potential to have almost mini dioramas on your bases. If you get some civilians, for example, in a marketplace, I've always envisioned a Spartacus rebellion army with gladiators weaving between the crowds and pots being dashed upon the floor while Romans give chase. But that's something I'm going to have to consider within the decade, because it takes me so long to make things. So to make a hill on a base, first I measure the dimensions, I heat my torture implements, and then I cut. Use a knife or fire to shape the styrofoam as required for your base. Make foam additions as required, cover the whole thing in PVA glue, spread and dip in sand. I, of course, ethically source my sand from the nearest anthill, and leave to refrigerate overnight. Locate a well-ventilated area, spray paint, then cover the plastic stand of the miniature in PVA glue, dip this in sand. I like to cover the join between the miniature and its new base with sand so it's all seamless. Now I like to make the foundations of the base with sand and spray paint with black undercoat for convenience, but then you have to actually add the miniatures in, right? And finish the base. So what do? You then paint the...
Wait, we forgot about the eggs.
What's
PVA glue in the eggs?
After that, it's a simple process of painting the base to tabletop or parade standard. So use a dark base coat of scorched brown, then highlight with bestial brown, and highlight further with snakebite leather. I like to have successive layers of darker to lighter colors, where the darker colors are still shown in patches, so you get a variety of different dirt colors on the base. After that, apply more PVA glue, and then simply put on static grass or whatever flock you like to prefer. I also like to put on some shrubs, paint some rocks into the base, add some flowers for variety, to make a nice countryside looking base. Well, this transitions nicely to the next part of the video, which is of course how to cook the eggs. After beating the eggs, pouring into a saucepan with low heat and leaving to simmer, you are no doubt hungry for knowledge about how to paint these Celtic cavalry. Rather than retread old ground about how to paint Celtic skin and Celtic plaid, let's talk about the horses, because that's what we're here for. For the purposes of painting horses, I had to research the different horse colours, such as dark bay, chestnut, skewbald, piebald, dappled grey, white, cream. The list goes on. You have access to Google, you don't need me to tell you what breeds of horses there are. You'll find some horse nerd out there somewhere. Let's check Instagram. I don't want to cover how I individually painted each horse because I experimented. I took a look at the photos, and then I found paints in my collection which seemed to match the photos.
If
I perhaps modified the paints a little by mixing and then worked my way up the standard base coat, layering, then highlighting. One principle I kept with my horses is I've seen photos of horses with the light catching on their coats, and then you see like great white patches. I found it difficult to duplicate on miniatures, but I've kind of kept the principle where you have white highlights at the very tip. So I've got very shiny looking horses, but I think it really fits the theme of the Celts being bright and multicolored and so forth. One trick for painting horse eyes, since they're so dark, I simply keep them in the black undercoat and dot the top corners to represent light reflecting off. Don't forget that some horses have pink snouts, but a lot of horses have black mouths. Other than that, just Google image a real horse, find close proximities in paints you own, and then it's just standard painting. I tried feather highlighting in crisscross patterns, but it looked weird, so I just highlight normally now. Thematically, Celtic Chariots and Celtic Cavalry are barbarian horsemen. They're not knights, but they're not as far gone as, say, Mongols or Vikings. I don't think they should have any furs, simply because I don't want them to tread on other armies' themes, and the plaid marks them out quite distinctively already. I think the barbarian aspect comes from bare flesh. In the case of the ancient Britons, you have woad warpaint. A Celtic army gives you opportunity to paint warpaint on the horses, so that can mark the horses out from other armies, but I haven't done it that much just because I really like the horse bare as it is. Celtic patterns are therefore plaids, tartans, and Celtic swirls, which you can put on chariot panels and on as warpaint on your warriors. The Celts had a practice of taking enemy heads as trophies, so make sure that there are some severed heads on your horses or on your standards. I really think that's it in terms of what marks out Celtic Cavalry and Chariots. It's the bare flesh, it's the warpaint, it's the plaids, it's the opportunity to have Celtic swirls and abstract patterns on your horses, but I think that's really it. And now, finally, we come to the last, final extra of this episode. How do we convert Celtic warriors, cavalry, and chariots? That is the only hope that the Brigante egg friends will find battlefield representation.
With all conversions, make sure you plan and conceptualize, because omelettes can't be undone once they're created. Like the power of the ring, or my first child.
Some very simple conversions are simply limb swaps, torso swaps, head swaps, where you cut off the limb, head, or torso of one miniature and exchange it with another miniature, and then fill in the joint with greenstuff. Greenstuff is a common modeling putty. You fill in the joints almost like a clay, and then you leave it to harden over 6 hours. These conversions are quite effective. They allow you to have variety in a regiment if all the models are duplicates. 172nd historicals are quite guilty of having duplicate poses. They don't have the mix and match qualities of Warhammer, but you definitely pay far less. And I really like the feeling of having a unique miniature. You know, I know that if I've converted a limb, no other miniature will be exactly the same in any other part of the world. So having a completely unique miniature is part of the appeal. Beyond that is when you sculpt whole sections of limbs, which I did for my chariot driver. My recommendation is to sculpt small joins to minimize greenstuff work, and then it's just a matter of time rather than skill. Make sure you use a tool to smooth over fingerprints, and we're all good. As you get more confidence, try sculpting different textures, like for jackets and chainmail, mustaches, birds' wings. There are many in-depth guides online. It just depends how far you want to go, but head swaps and limb swaps are the easiest and very effective. And now we get to the adult section of the video. Now, some early Celtic warriors fought naked. That means hack and bals. I get that this could offend some sensibilities, just seeing a huge raging hard on as you're trying to murder someone. So imagine how the Romans felt, who literally had to do that. You're just picturing it, which is slightly gay, but that's fine. I don't discriminate. Must have been some kind of weird orgy porno. Anyway, it is what it is. If you're naked, you're going to have genitalia, and it's historically and medically accurate. Well, what do you want me to do? For accuracy, I require all my naked warriors to have genitalia. But what about horses? Okay, it's a slippery slope. I'm not making horse dicks. It's too weird. I got an order from New Line Designs, and their naked warriors are accurately modeled for the historical purist. I want to address the controversy of nudity in wargames. I see a difference between lewd and naked minis. The far left has some converted Games Workshop Dark Elder Slave, and then you have a Kingdom Death Wet Nurse Slave, and then naked fanatics from New Line Design. The relaxed, suggestive pose sexualizes the mini, and the pregnant woman is like a fetish thing. It's sexualized by its nude, pregnancy, and its intention to portray a slave. But why would you try to f your minis. Like, just there's better outlets for sexual frustration, like cooking. Crack the eggs! I think it's fine when sexualization has a purpose. Dark Eldar and Kingdom Death explore sordid, erotic body horror, which is great. I don't think any topic should be taboo. It's just obviously you can get really weird about it, and it comes off as an incel who's trying to f*** their minis. On the other hand, the naked Celts aren't posed suggestively. They're just like any other warrior. They're just naked. And that's not lewd. You can make it lewd, but that's not the designer's intention. Anyway, I think if you want to have normal friends, go for historical nudity, and keep the lewd nudity for your deepest basement, which is where I sleep. After what happened to my house. But we made a great omelette. Howling. In the rush of the charge, the ancient Celts were consummate horsemen, the wild riders, the savage avalanche of bare flesh and painted mysticism. Bring the fury. Ride them down.
Please like and subscribe to my channel.